Hey there, you ever heard of GamesGrabber? Well, I'd like to talk to you about it today. Let's start off with this game, F0X. I'm talking about this game today. If you'd like to purchase it, there's a lot of ways to do so, and GamesGrabber is one of them. If you go to my GamesGrabber profile page, links in the description by the way, if you're interested, then you go to my collections, and there's a bunch of these lists. I have lists of games I've covered on YouTube, Amiibo, camera equipment, all sorts of stuff. It's really cool. So if you want to purchase your game through GamesGrabber, that supports me. And basically what happens is you click the link, you go to usually an Amazon page, and that's pretty cool. That's what happens. And yeah, I really like this hat too. It's so 90s, man. Like, seriously. This Top 10 intro is brought to you by VectorStar Productions. Today, we're going to see what moves F0X has to offer and what the 10 coolest tracks are in this game. This will be based on how the track looks, how well it plays, and any cool gimmicks that are included. So come on, grab your popcorn and get ready. Without further ado, let's go!
Number 10!
You know, a course is going to be good with a name like Firefield. Now look, I promise you this track isn't on the list solely for the name itself. That would just be ridiculous. Before we discuss Firefield, Holy Hot Macaroni is the song Absolute Madness. Every time I hear it, all I can think about is me in high school as a metalhead and Alpha Omega Sin. The song's speed and intensity pumps you up for the race. So, you start off by basically going off this huge ramp and you get to soar through the air for a while. This is really neat because when you get past the first lap, you can use boost power to try to skip over as much track as possible. There's a lot of tracks in this game that have jumps, but this one has to be one of the biggest and most satisfying to go across. There's a section with what I guess you could call sand that can not only slow you down, but can slow up your controls too. A long patch of it is laid down in the middle of the road, so you need to think ahead on what side of the road you're going to take that's faster and be cautious of avoiding the sand. This obstacle is great due to its nature of forcing you to adapt to your surroundings. It makes you think ahead. Around the end of the track, your car will kind of come to a stop since the ramp goes from basically straight up to flat. Using a boost here is a smart idea. The track itself isn't too difficult, and there's a lot of different ways to gain speed. It's really on fire.
Number 9!
I love hearing me some Mute City music. It's so nostalgic. Mute City 2 isn't the most advanced and complex stage in the game, but there's a few pretty neat things going for it. For starters, the environment feels really alive. You can see the night sky as well as some brightly lit buildings. There's a section where you can go off a ramp and it's pretty fun trying to land. There's other tracks with more ramps, but we'll get to that later on. Mute City 2 is more on the difficult side due to all the narrow ramps and turns, and I really appreciate that. Being under the pressure to focus on what's ahead can be really enjoyable once you get good enough that you don't take any damage and use as much boost as possible. I'm not that great at this game, so I hit walls a lot, but man is it great when you complete even a full lap without touching anything and you're boosting for days.
Number 8!
I do have to say, the land in Whiteland is indeed quite white. This is another track that's pretty challenging but fun. Here's why. First off, there's parts where you have no guardrails to rely on if you get close to the edge. You can actually fall off and retire. Yeah, that's right. In this racing game, like a dude doesn't fish you out or anything like that. No, you just straight up explode and die. Another cool part of the track is when you go up all the jumps one after the other. Something about that feels really thrilling, like I'm on a roller coaster or something. And holy crap, the background looks godly. It's like I'm racing in some alternate universe/dimension with cities built on the skies, and it's pretty freaking radical. There's even a big old loop you can drive through, and loops are just fun. You can't argue that. Well, I mean, you could technically, but come on, it's a loop. This track is just so zany. There's so many different track elements featured, and that makes it pretty fun to play on.
Number 7!
Now this gameplay may look like the wrong game, and that's because it is. But did you know that F0X has this track in the game? That's right, Mario Kart 64's version of Rainbow Road is in this game! Now it's not quite as bright and colorful, but the road is plenty rainbow, so that's close enough. The simple fact that this track is basically ported in here is flipping amazing, and it was a nice surprise for me my first time playing through this game. I honestly think Rainbow Road is much more fun in this game than in Mario Kart 64. The biggest improvement is that the difficulty has been ramped up by removing just one simple thing: the guardrails. Now, parts of Rainbow Road still have the guardrails, but not too much of it. The design of the course itself is filled with plenty of fun turns, and you can even soar in the air with the boost near the beginning of the track. And maybe I am a bit blind of nostalgia here, but the track really does work surprisingly well. Plus, it looks vastly different from anything else in F-Zero X. Even the game's subtitle for Rainbow Road says that it's a psychedelic experience. Well, okay, I don't think it's that extreme, but still.
Number 6.
If I could only say one thing about Red Canyon, I would say that it's very active. The main gimmick in this track is all of the jumps. You go off of a lot of them, and it's pretty refreshing to say the least. For a majority of the F-Zero tracks, you stay on the ground for all or most of the race, but for this one, you're constantly jumping around. This track not only helps the game shine, but it shows that the franchise is comfortable trying new things and making them work well. Now, these jumps aren't completely mindless. In fact, none of them are in this whole game. You have a ton of control in the air, maybe even more so than when you're gliding in Mario Kart. To avoid losing speed while you're racing, you need to try to land as evenly with the ground as possible. This can be really hard to pull off, but thanks to the boost you have, you can just use that if you slow down a bit after a jump. It's a really fun mechanic and makes me wish that we'll see a new F-Zero game sometime soon, even though it's been like 50 years since the last one.
Number 5.
That's right, we have another Mute City track. This one's cleverly titled Mute City 3! I can see this game kind of caught Super Mario Kart syndrome with their track naming, but whatever, that's not the point. If you thought Red Canyon had a lot of jumps, this one blows that out of the water. While there's not technically any jumps per se, there's a ton of ramps. These ramps are very helpful in skipping parts of the track and require a lot of precise control to use. Mute City 3 will put your jumping skills to the test, and it's just awesome. I should also mention that this is another stage that doesn't have too many guardrails, and I like it that way. Challenging F-Zero tracks are fun, but only to a point. If I'm racing on something like that hand stage, then that's not even fun because of how many obstacles you have to avoid. It becomes a game of dodging crap and less about racing. This track does have a lot of sharp turns, which can cause a loss in speed. That's where the ramps come into play. The joy of using a boost over a ramp and clearing a huge chunk of track is incredible. As I've said, you have a lot of control while in the air, and it makes for some pretty tight racing. This one is so high on the list for those reasons, and it's got that rocking Mute City music too.
Number 4.
So to start off this race, you'll dive right into a tunnel where you can drive into the walls and ceilings. Just being able to do this is incredibly fun because of how different it feels compared to the other tracks in this game. Just as a side note, why wasn't there a game mechanic similar to this one implemented into Mario Kart 8? It really should have been, but yeah, this tunnel sequence is so great. Since everything is so enclosed around you, that sense of speed is more present than ever before. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with being out in the open, but zipping through a small tunnel is loads more fun. There's even a sign with the N64 logo on it. It's pretty much the game saying, yeah, this is F-Zero in 3D. Now I know that flipping around makes you go a lot slower, but I don't really care because of how cool it is, and it is just a video game. It ain't all about winning.
Number 3.
What can be said about Space Plant? Well, it kind of feels like a combo pack of a track. All the unique gimmicks added from other stages are all kind of thrown into this one, and that is pretty darn tasty. The track starts off pretty basic, and then you're thrown into the short cylinder-based section. We'll talk more about this in more detail in a bit, but at the end you can also perform this huge jump. I really like that this track has a little bit of everything in it. If you were to show your friend what F-Zero X was all about, you would have to show them this stage first and foremost. There's even an ice section, which can honestly be a problem because the width of the ice covers most of the track and it's kind of ridiculous, but it's not that big a deal because it's so brief. There's even a fun tunnel section. All of these elements work really well together, which is kind of surprising seeing how different they all are.
Number 2.
If there were a racing game that made me feel like I was actually playing Tony Hawk, this is the one track to do that. White Land 2 is made almost entirely of half pipes, and holy crap is this a bag of treats. There's really not much to the stage aside from that, but there doesn't need to be. The fact that this track layout is radically different from the rest of the tracks really helps it stand out. There's definitely a huge challenge in keeping a fast speed. Trying to stay in the middle of the road can be very difficult since the whole road is constantly twirling around in all sorts of directions. When you are in control though, you can really focus on using as much boost as you want since there really aren't many obstacles to worry about. Now while that might make this track sound easy, it isn't because if you go too fast, you'll fly right off and retire. White Lane 2 is a near-perfect blend of speed and difficulty. There is, of course, one more track that's even more ridiculous than this one. And now, the number one coolest F-Zero X track is... Oh yeah, it's the Big Bad Blue. This track has my personal favorite F-Zero music of all time. The background's water landscape is quite beautiful, but none of that even compares to the track itself. For most of the race, you are driving on a cylinder. That's right, there is gravity around a cylinder-shaped road as we've seen in Space Plant. This is so sweet and breathes new air to racing games. This is another feature that, again, I can't believe wasn't implemented into Mario Kart 8. Now for most tracks, if you want maximum speed, you have to stay close to the edge of a track so you don't waste as much time. However, these cylinder roads are a different story. There are no edges, and I can't really fathom how you can achieve the highest speeds possible. Either I'm dumb, or only a robot of some sorts could pinpoint this. Or a speedrunner. Now again, Space Plant did have a section like this, but it was pretty brief compared to Big Blue. I love when games strive for originality, and this track does just that. But yeah, my top 10 of the hardest Diddy Kong racing tracks may be of some interest to you, as well as the hardest Mario Kart 64 tracks. Leave a like if you want, and tell me what you think the coolest F-Zero X tracks are and why. Hop on the bandwagon and follow my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Thanks for watching, guys, and before you go back to sleep since it's summer and you're not really ready to get up, maybe watch a couple more of my videos first. But hey, it's cool if you're half asleep right now and zoned out of half of this video. I ain't mad or anything. It's cool, man. I got you.